All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Think Bigger podcast, community conversations. And the member of the community that we are about to have a conversation with is a good friend of mine. I'm very blessed to have become acquainted with him very recently, and his name is Doug.
Hey, what's up, Mike? Thank you for having me on, man.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you being here. This is a conversation that we've talked about months ago.
Yeah, finally making it happen.
Maybe even like a year ago.
Yeah.
When I first brought it up to you. But you know what? Regardless of the circumstances, we're here.
Yeah.
We get to have this conversation. And I'm excited about covering a lot of things, but really, notable rides. We'll get to that, and I think that the way you've carved out this style, right? You weren't the first person to do one or two or three of those things, but when you put it together and made it your own, there's a testament to your success because you just made it your own and you put yourself out there, and the art and the work, right, spoke for itself. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about you is that term that you use about yourself, the process addict, right? I think that needs to be driven home to people. You're addicted to the process, right? But before we get into all of that, notable rides, it's art, right? And you made your name on Post-it notes, right?
Yeah, made it on Post-it notes of everything.
Dude, talk to us about that. Why? All the mediums, all the drawing, the ways of drawing. How did you end up deciding that you're going to go all in with Post-it notes?
Honestly, it's it really was kind of like a happy accident, and I think it was just kind of meant to unfold the way it did. Believe it or not, the Post-it was actually a happy accident too.
Okay. Oh, you mean the creation of the actual
the
Post-it?
actual Post-it note was an actual, with the adhesive that can actually, it's tactile to put on a wall and take off without leaving residue.
Yes.
I kind of see my story in terms of how I stumbled upon doing this, this unique niche of painting cars on Post-it was, I went to design school.
Yes.
For automotive design, and
where did you go?
I went to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. So, that's where every aspiring car designer goes. So, long story short, I went through that school, learning about the discipline of automotive design.
Yeah.
What goes into making a car, what makes something aesthetically pleasing, designing the future. But, at the end of it, at the heart of it all, I still felt like an artist. I loved painting, I loved coloring. All the fundamental things that, were starting to disappear because the new wave of, designing now is digital 3D modeling has been a game changer.
Yes. So
the loss of traditional art and using your hands to craft things it's kind of dying, and it's sad to me. And, I feel it's compelling to me to still kind of keep it going.
Yes.
And, I was working a full-time job as an in-house designer at Galpin Autosports. You actually see them on Discovery today with Car Kings.
Sure.
And that wasn't a plug. That's just, I'm happy to see that old crew do their thing finally. And ultimately, I was in the office one day, and, I had a strong phase where I really wanted to learn how to paint with gouache.
What's gouache?
Gouache is it's like a water-based paint, and the binders are, it's almost like watercolor, but with a stronger binder in it, which allows it to, have density, and build up the paint and everything. Okay. So, and I was just fascinated with painting, and I had a teacher said, hey, we're going to teach you how to do this stuff, because the results were beautiful, amazing. So
you were already fiddling with gouache, you wanted to go all into it.
And unfortunately we never got to it.
You mean in the school setting? In
the school, yeah, which was because like I said, digital took over, and that was the main focus. So with that kind of, when something's bugs me, I need to go figure out how to go do it, and just get it handled. So one day I was just sitting in the office, and I had a stack of Post-its on there, and it was my lunch break. And
this is while you're still a student.
Still a student, and also working at Galpin. It was a weird situation where my internship turned into a job while still being a student. So that was a unique time in my life. But ultimately, I was at lunch, picked up a Post-it note, drew a car, had some paints on me, and I started painting.
Yes.
And dude, the rush, it's that process thing of the application. For some reason, I fell in love with it immediately, and was
So you had like an adrenaline rush. You can specifically recall some kind of rush from doing that specific creation form.
Yeah, like a little it was that zen. It was not zen, but it was just like that. Feels natural. Just it was pleasing. It was calming.
Yes,
you say.
Yes,
so,
yes.
And the result was awesome. So I still have that very first post-it just to remind me where I started with it. And then coincidentally, just in the time of all of this, a friend of mine who owned an art gallery was he's like, hey, do you want to do an art show, a solo art show where you present your work, and all that? I was like, cool, yeah, that would definitely be down. That's unheard of.
That sounds awesome.
And so ultimately, I wanted to do something different for the show. I looked at all my old work, wasn't happy with it, and I was like, oh, well, I have these Post-its.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm starting to learn that I have a knack for painting really small and enjoy joining it very small.
Yeah.
And basically, I made it a goal to do like 50 Post-it paintings. 50.
For the show?
For the show alone.
Okay,
The 50 was a time to just come up with something fresh, but at the same time, it was something for me to use as practice. So those were my very first series is like a practice series too, as you can see, right?
Well, when was this art show?
Our show was June 2013. This was 7 years ago, nearly 7 years ago.
Were you graduated already?
Yeah, I was actually out of school for a year.
Okay.
So I graduated in 2012, and then, I was getting my professional career started. So, just the timeline is... I can't even think about the timeline. But ultimately, I did these 50... and it actually was the main focus of the show. Like, everyone kind of forgot all the other work. And
okay, so it wasn't just your work. It was a body of work by multiple artists.
Oh, body of work was all my... The whole gallery was all my work. But it just happened to be, like, most people kind of was geared towards the Post-it stuff.
Okay, so when you did that art show, it wasn't just Post-its. You did a section.
Just a section.
And people would just... You were observing that people were going and staring more at...
Yeah, when you tell them it's like, this is interesting, you tell them it's a Post-it note, and then before you know it, the word was spreading quickly.
Sure.
And what was crazy is just another thing. It's just kind of like this was all organic, and at the same time, Instagram was coming out, or I just joined Instagram.
Okay.
And I just the time and everything, and I started posting the work up, and before you know it, a lot of interest was starting to be generated there. And he's like, wow, I got something. Like something here is very unique and special. The reaction I was getting was just very bizarre. So, and ultimately I kind of just went at it. I can't take all credit for it. Like this idea of doing stuff on Post-it, was inspired by a show that I went to in LA that is at another gallery called Giant Robot.
Okay.
And annually they have a thing called a Post-it show. So that's literally like, I think it's like 300 artists and literally paint on Post-its, and the walls are just wallpapered up with these things.
Yes.
And you got artists like Matt Groening from The Simpsons, dude, I can't even name other, like I have my friend Wayne who's an inspiration to me, put up personal work. You can buy it for like $25. The fact that you can get original work for someone for $25. So, and that was kind of like the model that it helped inspire me to do my show. And that was the year prior, so I forgot to include that part. But and I wanted to put my own flair on it, which was cars, because I didn't see anything at that show at the time.
Yes.
So, and I was like, well, how detailed can I get with these things? And I got addicted to the process of improving. Just how much more can I improve one? And then the momentum of social media kept the encouragement going.
Yes.
Keep pushing through and get better. And before you know it, people were wanting to buy the works, and I was getting recognized globally, at the time, and it was just like, oh, okay, cool. This was enough to, take a good majority of my attention for me and put all the energy towards it. So, and that's what it spawned to, hence Notable Rides.
Yes.
Couldn't be any more literal than that. So,
well, if somebody doesn't know what the word notable means.
Yeah, notable, it's something that is of significance. That's something that is noteworthy that you should remark on.
Yes.
I think it's like doing a podcast and you have that person, in a way, you're doing things that are notable. Like, you do notable things. It's just something that is of great value to someone, you know. And
see, there you go, right there.
So,
you touched on something very important: doing something that's of great value, to the community, to someone else, or to everyone else, not just for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So when you can find something that does both, gives you satisfaction and is noteworthy and provides something of value to another person or a group of people, that's when you've hit like the nail on the head. And you can have a very fulfilled existence. And that sort of thing kind of gets lost, I think, you know.
Heavily, yeah.
Very much so. People are driven by money. They're driven by some type of quantification of fame, and the social media is a great example. You quantify your credibility, your success.
It's a validation.
Yes, you validate it by how many followers, and therefore it doesn't matter if you are doing something with your heart and soul. If you are unfortunately unable to block that kind of pop culture perspective, you can end up feeling very unfulfilled or lose the value or the weight of what you're doing because you don't think that it's enough, you know?
Of course, and then you're leaving it at that, you know, you leave it at the hands of an algorithm.
Correct.
You know, you leave it at the hands of other people that you don't even know.
Right.
And
right.
It's you know, one thing, you know, it is the power thing, and I think as I gotten older, you know, I can't say I was free of that. Like, I did get caught up in that.
Sure.
Vicious
we all
cycle,
do.
Right?
We all did or do at some point.
And then I think, you know, and then you get stuck with, you know, you get stuck with this idea of, you know, I think what is great about, you know, what we're going through right now, and it's a very painful thing for some people, but like I've gotten used to it for like the last few years, is this idea of sitting with yourself and your thoughts and self-realization.
Yes.
And questioning why you're doing the things you're doing. What is the reasons for your actions?
Yes.
And, you know, you question your beliefs. You know,
Yes.
one of those was like, why do I feel so caught up in like trying to get validation from people? Or why do I get bugged out that, you know, this post didn't do as well as...
Sure.
And it's like, this is such, you know, excuse the cut. It's like, it's bullshit. It's just... It's hollow. It's empty.
Yes.
It's not of substance. And, you know, why am I like giving my power to something like this?
Correct.
So, you know, and it's like when I started getting comfortable and trying to answer that, it stemmed off into a lot of things. And it came down to there was a void, man. There was something I was trying to fill that, you know, I was missing. And I know exactly what it was, you know, when I started digging deep, you know. And you know, and I'm coming to peace with all that stuff. And as I'm getting older and understanding, reprioritizing, understanding what is of true value.
Yes.
What is essential.
Yes.
You know, I you know, it is a painful. I think it's nice that the world is kind of on pause for a second.
Yes. Yes.
You know, because it's a workaholic kind of society.
American culture,
at least in Western society.
kind of culture. It's go,
and
then you have to be an entrepreneur, have a side hustle, a day job, and everything in between. And in between it all, you're on social media pushing your brand and who you are. It's true, man, and it's unhealthy.
It's. I can understand the dichotomy of, yes, you need to make a living with it. This is a way, you know, if you're chasing legacy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, it's the long game, man. You look down 5 years down the road, you may have all the success, but you realize something got neglected, and whether that be
something intangible, something you can't put your finger
spiritually,
on. Yes.
Your soul,
internally,
whatever it may be, whatever consciousness, or you know, whatever you come at peace. And you know what? Like, a lot of people who I've met, you know, for example, like having my brother-in-law, and I look at him, and he's just such at peace, man. Like, there's something about him. You know, he has a really nice job. He's been able to afford a lot of great things.
Sure.
But he doesn't let that get to him. Like, you could take that all away from him. And I'm like, we got stuck in a conversation. It's like, if you won $500 million, what would you do with it? My sister and I got mad at him because of just how simple his
responses were.
He's like, dude, honestly, just give me a game room with video games, and I'm like very content. Like, you're like, you wouldn't do anything else, like help other. He's like, no.
He's like, you've now used only 60,000 of $500 million.
If even 60,000,
and he just couldn't come up with anything else.
Well, of course, he would like to help people out and everything.
Sure.
But, dude, he doesn't require much because there's something inside of him that was fulfilled. There's something innately...
And you're talking about a person who is a medical doctor
Yes.
in an ER setting.
Yeah.
So in the context of our present circumstances in the world, that is frontline doctor working with all these COVID-19 or potential COVID-19 exposure day to day, right? Mm-hmm. And someone, but subsequently there's also a relatively solid amount of income. You know, you're in a certain tax bracket.
Right.
But you're saying that in the midst of all that,
he hasn't changed.
He's
at
just
all.
a chill person who had $500 million and was like, I'd probably just add a game room. That's all he said.
It's literally...
You guys got mad at him.
We got mad because it was like, could you push it any more?
Yeah.
That's really all you would do, right?
Yeah.
And we're trying to feed him our,
sure.
thought. But at the same time, you're like, damn, man, you just... And, and granted, his past wasn't easy, man.
Yeah.
And I think it stems from this idea of gratitude. It comes from this idea of self-awareness.
Yes.
What you prioritize. He doesn't prioritize material things. Like, it just, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And it just, dude wears the same stuff. I've known him ever since he's, 10 years ago.
Sure.
Still the same cat. And, like, I love him even more for that. And he keeps me kind of, like, grounded. And it's like, I chase process. Like, I chase just trying to become better, evolve better, be whoever I want to build in my head, designing myself, right? The material stuff, I think at the end of the day, like, the biggest, I don't mean to get on a solemn mood, but, like, I think the biggest impact where talking about that void, I was going back to earlier, it was the passing of my dad.
Okay.
At 30 years old, it really woke me up to, like, myself.
Okay.
I think adversity really does introduce you to the kind of person you are.
Yeah.
The greatest one was you really don't know your values until they're tested.
Okay.
So I had some certain values in my head, and they got tested because of this unfortunate circumstance.
Yes.
So it really had me go back to the drawing board and redesign everything and what I thought was me or my life. What I wanted. And I saw that type of lifestyle, the type of people that was attracted into my life.
Okay.
You kind of attract like versus...
Absolutely.
So, and I didn't like it anymore, and ultimately, because of his passing, one of those things was material. You look in my office and everything, and there's quite a few things that are his
possessions.
This was his office, man.
I see.
Like, I moved when he passed away, of course, I moved back home to help my mom out with all these things. And, granted, now we're coming to a point where she's happy. She's found someone who's the right fit. And it's been a process getting to know him and do with the change there.
Yeah.
But, look at this material, and this was, like, embodied him.
Yeah.
And, it's like, now they mean something because they were his, but they don't really mean too much to me because I didn't value the way he valued them.
Yes, of course.
So, and I look at the same thing with all my stuff, and it's like, man, like, if I died, dude, look at all the material that's left behind, you know? And granted, I already have a will on, like, what I want to have done with it,
Sure.
But yeah, it was one of those aspects of this change that brought to my attention. So, it opened up other aspects of, like, what are other things in my life that are impeding me, or, that I'm not seeing, like, blind spots that I've had.
Yeah.
And, ultimately, I'm trying to be, I like to be cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
But, because of it, like, I try to make sense of his passing.
Yes.
Because it was very sudden. Like, I'm very PTSD.
Okay.
Now, because I would say a little bit of that.
Fair enough.
Which has turned me on to philosophies. I did question my faith.
Sure. Sure.
I'm still in the process of figuring out a life of philosophy that kind of helps me manage better walking through each day.
Yes.
So I've turned to stoicism a lot.
Yes.
Which
can be dangerous.
But
stoicism can be very dangerous.
Right. And I think has to be a balance
of,
not shutting yourself off from emotions, but not being too cold or distant, which a lot of people would take stoicism as.
Right,
but
exactly.
It's a balance of being logical, rational, reasonable.
Yes.
And you could still have your emotions, but just learning how to, I think it comes down to the goal of awareness, just what's happening internally. And I think I wasn't doing enough of that, hence why I was having so much anxiety. So, and with all that, Buddhism, Taoism.
Yeah.
Got into, what was it, like fatalism. Just studying different philosophies, just trying to make sense of, like, dude, I went through a dark period of, like, everything's pointless, everything's meaningless. What I do, even my craft, like being an artist.
You started losing the feeling of purpose in your craft.
Well, yes. But at the same time, it was a battle between heart and mind.
Okay.
For some reason, heart was like, dude, just keep going.
Yes.
And I have very distinctive pieces where I remember the state I was in.
Sure.
Like, there's some dark pieces that, it's like, oh, dude, I was so depressed, but yet I was still going.
Yes.
And I look back now and I actually go, oh, that's actually pretty good work,
Doug, you've touched on a couple of extremely, and I mean extremely important things.
I like to hear it. Yeah.
Very, very deep, important things that I think are far more prevalent, and they're much more a part of most people's scenario than I think people know. And we were talking about a couple of things. You said self-awareness, self-realization. Which is one of the most important, if not the most important thing that a person can do. People don't know how to have a conversation with themselves. People don't know how to be in a silent space with themselves, right? And it's almost to the point where it's weird if you're in a room, potentially in the dark, silent.
Oh, dude, you're like,
someone's like, oh, that guy is a weirdo.
5150.
Yeah, and just because he's being quiet. There was a time where if someone were to, everyone's reading a newspaper on a train back in the day. If someone were to just start talking out loud to everyone, they would be weird and rude, right? Then it turned into a point where everyone's now looking down at their phone, right? Now, if you looked at a room or a train, or if everyone's looking at their phone, the one guy or girl who's not on their phone looking around at everyone else, they're going to look like a weirdo.
Yeah.
Like, why is this person staring at everyone? What if we're just observing the world around us? So, you touched on a couple of things that were just so strong. And I want to kind of recap on that.
Let's go. Yeah.
You're talking about the unfortunate passing of your father. Okay, there's going to be a ton of people who are going to know that feeling. A family member, direct, maybe indirect, a friend, a close friend, etc. But the loss of someone that's so central in your life, right, that it shakes you to the core. Okay, it is always something like a funeral, something catastrophic that pretty much brings people together. You have family and friends that reconvene at the funeral, or sometimes a wedding does it, right? There's always a major event. And, you see people you haven't seen at maybe the wedding reception, and you talk, and you're like, oh, we should keep in touch. But really, most often, from my personal life and from what I've observed, across the board, it's always the death of someone that brings people together or brings someone to a new point internally, right? Because they've been shaken. Their world, the existence has been shaken, and so now they're trying to figure it all out. They're reassessing. You start reprioritizing, just like you said. And the thing about it is that's basically exactly kind of like if you take what's going on in the world around us right now with the pandemic, COVID-19, etc. Right? You have this scenario where it's something like death, albeit statistical, right? Or it's on the news, but it's still the fear of death or death itself that shakes people. Now, you took that pain and that uncertainty that was forced upon you, really, by the death of your father, and you did something with it. It's not like you figured it out from the day one. You had to work at it. You still are working at it, and that's an important thing. It's not like you're there, snap of a finger, right? But what I'm saying is that you had this death, and you worked at that. You had this PTSD. You had this whole, like, I don't know who I am and what I'm doing, and I don't find fulfillment, and I'm lost, right? And you worked at it, right? You spent time with yourself. You read things. You listened to things, and you worked through it. Still are, but you got to that point where that shaking period, right? Where life, if you will, took you by the shoulders and shook you. You did something with that, and you have a certain presence and a certain foundation, being grounded in who you are, which is an ever evolving thing. I think with human beings is, where is your morality, right? Where are your ethical standards? Who are you? That's kind of where that saying, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, comes from. Because if you don't choose a way to be, who to be, and how to be,
how
on
do you
your
define
own.
yourself?
Yeah, if you don't do that, you are constantly going to flow with pop culture or whoever or whatever you expose yourself to.
Exactly.
And it is deeply frightening to see a younger generation who don't know who they are, and it constantly changes by what social media tells them. Is the type of music to listen to, is the type of way to dress, is the type of the way to speak.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, it comes down to, where's their support structure,
Yeah.
And granted, there's still some decent kids out there. I think
Yeah.
I've come across a lot of decent
Yes.
ones that are still,
I'm talking about by and large.
By and large, though,
Yeah.
yes, it's hard not to get influenced or see what's going on and fall into the flock and
Yes.
the crowd.
But
So,
I mean, look at all of these things that you're talking about. I'm seeing a person who is, you're not speaking like, this happened and it hurt and then I figured it out. There's no finality. You're talking about, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Present tense, right? And I think that's very important, because there are people who always are kind of being told, this is how you make money, right? Especially this generation. Every YouTube ad, this is how you make money, this is how you build real estate, this is how you build wealth, this is how you trade stocks, this is how you have a 6-figure income, this is how you become popular, this is how you get chicks, and there's finality to it. This is how you do it, and I figured it out, now it's your turn. And that's not always the reality, man.
Well, I think that's where you bring that aspect. You're always being shoved down your throat.
Yes.
Like, hey guys, this is the way to do it.
The way.
And then you'll find someone else going, no, that's not the way. It's this
Correct.
way. It's the
and everyone's telling you that this is the right one, the other one's wrong.
It's the overwhelming idea of ideas. That's all it is. That's what I'm learning about the internet. It's just this. The reason why there's so much anxiety is because everyone's going, hey, here's my idea. That's what I'm just trying to find a voice, I guess you can say, or find something, listen to myself, but at the same time, I'm not afraid to like take, other people's inspirations, and in a sense, hence, I'm recreating my blueprint.
Yes.
Right? That's, everyone should be able to know how to design their own blueprint. And I think that's the issue, is I think it's, it's the idea of kids, who are unfortunate, who don't have a support structure, and they're just kind of left to fend for themselves and have to figure it out.
Yes.
And you got tools like social media, or whoever's in their surrounding or influence, it's just designing them, and that's the tough part. And it's and it's the constant feed of ideas. It's the constant feed. This is how you need to be.
And the rate at which those ideas are presented, it's milliseconds.
You don't have time to digest.
Correct.
You're just like, oh shit.
But see, here's the thing, though, right? Mm-hmm. It's, you are talking the truth, man, and it's the part of what I'm so concerned or worried about when it comes to the the upcoming generation, right? Mm-hmm. I'm very concerned about them, because if they don't have a grounding, a support structure, right? If they don't have that, and if they don't know how to control their social media exposure, they are going to inadvertently be the victim of just a bombardment, right? But here's the thing. I always say that the internet, which is everything on the internet, right? It's not social media. I'm talking about just anything internet related, anything digital, right? TV, smart TV, social media, YouTube, Instagram, all of that falls under one thing. It is either a tool or it is a crutch. Okay? A tool, by definition, is something that you use when you choose to use it to help your life, to make a task become easier, right? And in that way, you can streamline things. You can become more efficient. Technology makes things more efficient. So you can use the internet and everything contained within as a tool, or it becomes a crutch and you become dependent on it, right? And if you didn't have it, you would end up being in a very bad situation, right? So it's a tool or it's a crutch, right? And if you don't have a grounding, if you don't have any type of guide, right, you're going to get very much stuck in the dependency on it. it is going to become a crutch.
Of course.
I don't know what's happening in pop culture or in my age group if I'm not on social media.
It's
even
the
though
missing out factor.
you're missing out. You're not included, right? If I don't post, I'm not going to be relevant. And that's the problem, is people are gauging their relevance on how many people followed them back.
Goes back on that validation aspect,
correct,
man.
People need the validation. And what they need to do is find fulfillment in their craft, in their art. You know, that's why I named it the Think Bigger podcast.
I love it.
It's under the Think Bigger project. It isn't the, build a better car project.com, right? It isn't anything like that. This is about the way that we think. And right now you're sharing this method of thinking that's just, it's crucial, because it took hardship and it took time and it took life to get to that point. And there are people who have been through more than you have.
Yeah.
There are people who've been through less. But it's what you choose to do with life, right, that can make you a better person. This COVID-19 phase that we're all in, you either come out, there's 3 ways that I believe you can come out of this. You come out better, you come out the same, or you come out worse. How can you come out better? You can come out better by learning a new skill set, educating yourself. Instead of just watching TikTok videos, you can do it yourself. I've learned people who are telling me, they're messaging me all the time, and they're like, man, I built a cabinet in my garage. I've never done that before. But dude, anything, this generation, anything you could ever want to learn how to do, you can learn. Not just by reading, but someone's probably made a video where you can watch it step by step, pause it, reverse it, go back and build something up. People who've never painted a house before, they painted their bedrooms. A couple of people have redone their bathrooms, and they're like, you know how freaked out I was to take a sledgehammer to the floor? And they're like, but I watched like 50 videos, and these videos are like extremely detailed, and I felt comfortable doing it.
And that's the thing. It comes down to whether you have, it is either you have a growth mindset, or you're what's the other, a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And I think both of us can say we're both in the growth mindset aspect.
You have to be, man. Always.
That's the way you adapt. Adaptation is it's key, man. Just to evolve with whatever's happening, and just, I think it's what keeps you calm. And then I think it's just everything you brought up are great points, and I think both of us are just, it's amazing. You just want to keep you want to get better,
as a person,
keep growth despite whatever the circumstance may be. And then you try to find a solution and make the best of whatever the situation is. And that's what I think, it was another part of me that I'm learning. Or I did have the quality, it's become louder now to me.
Sure.
Now it's just trying to figure out how to nurture it.
Yes.
And I think that's just, it goes back to it can't get any word than process, man. It's just, I think process holds such it's a strong word to me, at least.
The process,
and I think it is. It's just I think that's the part that is missing too. Is it's this fast success, or it's this fast result or solution, and it's like, it doesn't.
Okay, so speaking of that, fast is a measurement of time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how quickly you got somewhere. But what about?
It's subjective, yeah.
Sure, but okay, so let's talk about, we talked about art school, design school, right? And then working, the internship that turned into a job, and the evolution into you creating your art and Post-its. But what about before that, right? You're a kid, right? What did you decide, or when did you decide was when I want to be into art? When other people were skateboarding, other people were doing other things. How did you decide that art was your steez?
Honestly, I think about that. It's a great question. Is like, it really was, it goes back to, I feel like it was just a gift already. It was just kind of like innate. It was just me. It's hard to say. Like, for example, my sister.
Okay.
I can recall as early as preschool, believe it or not.
You can, really?
Well, okay, parents encounter.
Sure.
Parents encounter said, my sister was always doing well in her grades. She was very attentive. Me, on the other hand, had very hard time focusing. But at the same time, when it came to the art stuff, it was like I was very hyper-focused.
Okay.
So those were kind of some of the early signs that were showing. And it wasn't until elementary school, high school, my grades. I honestly was an average student. I was C's. My parents were even happy if I was getting a C or a B+. I just wasn't interested. It wasn't for me. and but I always excelled in my PE class, and then the art classes. Just always great comments from art classes. So and that's what my parents saw was, okay, that's where I think I got it from, is just make the best of the situation.
Yeah.
They didn't criticize me for not being, applying myself as well as I should have been. They tried, but they saw a unique talent there, and they did everything they could to support that and, coax that talent that I had. And of course, they gave me the strict ultimatum: you make this work, or you're out on your own, and you got to figure it out yourself if you don't make this work.
When did they give you that ultimatum?
Senior year of high school.
Senior, because this is when you're already saying, I want to go to art school.
Yeah.
So they're saying, all right, we're going to support you in this, but you either make it happen or you're out. Did they give you a timeline?
Yeah. They said 4 years.
4 years.
4 years. And if you're not making it out, dude, sorry, man. You're just like, my dad wasn't, he was great, but yeah, he was kind of like, he was that fire under the ass that he needed, and I'm glad I had him in the picture for that, and that kind of.
But having a timeline made you go and know that you had to push yourself.
And then at the same time, it kind of brought me back to, having that intensity, understanding that, they're also sacrificing their time and their life to make sure, the bettering of our life, and I can be able to focus wholeheartely on what I was doing. So I never took that lightly, and I took that very seriously. And what do you know, my grades actually, turned out I was actually like a A-B student in
art
design
school.
In design school, believe it or not, it was just that kick in the ass I needed. I needed an ultimatum, and I understand that's how I'm not one of those guys who, I don't know if it's just a quality of mine or if it's a personality trait, but it's just like I need a pressure to get me going.
So some people don't like pressure. You, on the other hand, embrace it.
I need it. Like, that's really, like, if you give me all the time in the world, give me kind of like a span time.
Yeah.
I won't lie. Like, I'll kind of wait till the last second to get it done.
That's pretty normal.
But procrastination, it's a trait, but dude, my work comes out from that. And that's just, it's like, man, I hate that trait, but at the same time, it's like, oh, okay, well, it gives me, I need a time constraint.
You know what I like, man? I like that you'll have people who say a time constraint or a deadline, aka pressure, can be debilitating, right? I fold under pressure. Some people do, but what I really like is that you've been able to understand who you are, right? And that's how you are, and you can embrace that, right? But the thing about it is another thing that I really want to make sure that the people who listen, because there are going to be people here who relate to everything you've said and I've said, and there are going to be people who don't relate to anything, not one piece of it. I didn't have any parents. I couldn't go to art school, even a design school, even if I wanted to. Yeah. Okay, my point is, for all of you guys listening, the thing that makes the power, like I said, tool or crutch, right? The social media, the digital ability to reach the world, right? Mm-hmm. And the countries and age groups and genders that listen, right? That are going to hear your words via, the podcast. It's powerful. And I want to drive home something for all of the listeners right now, is that what matters here is not your circumstances, not if you are talking about hearing about this father and mother support and brother-in-law. Let's say you don't have any one of those, right? It doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter because it's up to you. Whatever age you are, you have to make a decision that you're going to embrace who you are and work with that and push yourself to grow, regardless of whether you have help or not.
And to add to that, just to, to add to the scale of that, like what my parents did for me.
Yes.
Coming from their background, it's like my dad did grow up parentless. Like my grandpa was a methadone addict.
Okay.
He basically was out of the picture. My grandma, his mom accidentally, killed herself. Accidentally. At 7 years old, and he dealt with so much trauma.
Yeah.
Like, and then the fact that, he was dealing with, as a 50-year-old man, still learning how to deal with that. And then some reason, he figured out how to give my sister and I a life that he could have had. And he figured it all out. That's why he was so inspirational to me. He was a guy who was the epitome of not anything handed to him. And I'm hoping there's other like, if you guys are in that position too, dude, I commend you guys, like, from the heart. Like, you guys are... It's mind blowing. I respect people who start from dirt, man.
Yeah.
Like,
hell yeah.
Fuck, man. Like, dirt. Like, believe it or not, like, there's a little part of me that's envious of people who start from dirt and making it work for themselves. Like, because it's like, what, it's just so defining. It's so, I think things mean so much more, and there's this intensity and hunger that comes with it. And I've met other people who've had the same kind of like upbringing, and you're just like, man.
Yeah, dude, they're given some powerful tools.
Shit, and it's like, dude, and I'm sure they're looking at my situation too. It's like, dude, you have it so fucking good. You're spoiled. It's like, dude, you're not utilizing it. And then, dude, I understand. I get it. And, I know the very fortunate position to be in. So that's why I don't fuck around and, like, want to waste it. And I'm, understand this shit can be taken away from me, too.
Yes.
Like, and I want to make sure I'm earning it as well. I'm putting in the time. I'm putting in the work and the sacrifice. So, and it's like, it's just everyone's situation, and it comes down to like, what are you made of too, man?
Yes.
And
as a person, as an individual, as a human being, what are you gonna be made of? It's true, man. Like, it's true.
How do you temper the whole situation? By far, I still think I'm soft, dude. Like, I'm not like, everyone loses a parent, two of them, have, granted, like, I had, the following year, there was another death, and then
there's just more. Life is gonna always have that,
and that's what I just had to learn.
Yeah,
life is gonna be rough, and I don't want to fall apart when shit does arrive. That's
correct.
All I wanted to learn. The lesson is, don't fall apart, and it's resilience.
Resilience.
And I'm hoping that using my art is an expression of that. Is persevere, it's like art and creating it, dude, it's extremely taxing. Yes, I'm sitting there, I'm like no physical labor, but it's a lot of mental energy.
Absolutely.
Crank. And yes, you're dealing with the uncertainty, is like, how do I make a living, how do I pay the bill? And it's not the best
the whole starving artist thing. Sure,
if you do it right, and it's like most artists, in a sense, I wish we can be better business people. That's just the hindrance of why artists are starving. Yes. Just need to learn how to deal with money better. But that's a whole nother topic. But it's just like, but it's a passion. This is my love.
Yes.
Like every little piece I'm making is a reflection of, it's not the car or the subject. It's just it's the process of creating. It's the love of knowing that it wasn't there and now it exists. Yeah. And I don't get tired of that aspect,
So, dude, we all the way up from not doing well in other classes, but having this affinity towards art, it growing into, you go through high school, you get to this point where I want to do art, I want to go to design school, and your parents at this point totally understand who you are, and they're like, all right, you're going to do it 4 years, right? Yeah. You have 4 years, and if you don't do something with it and make something of yourself, you are out of here. Yeah. So you go to design school, right? You end up getting your internship at Galpin Autosports, and that ended up turning into a full-time job. Yeah. Okay, and we talked about that. One time you're on your lunch break, Post-it note, right? And that's kind of how the Post-it note, which the people who are going to have heard of Notable Rides more recently, that's what they're going to think of, okay? Oh, yeah. But we talked about how that evolved and where that came from. But from that point, where you go to design school and you realize there's this heavy emphasis on digital, 3D, and all the digital drawing. So obviously you know how to do that too, but you just appreciated the original form of drawing with your hand on a platform.
It's rewarding.
Like a piece of paper, mm-hmm. Okay? So you kept doing that. You have the art and the design school, background, but you stayed with this. And when you got to Galpin, right, what was your internship even for there?
So that was the thing. So the whole ultimatum thing. So it came down to maybe it was like my year first into school, and it actually became internship time. Okay. I put all my eggs in one basket. I wanted to go intern at BMW. Okay. Fortunately for me, I got the opportunity to be interviewed amongst 3 other students that were all outclassed me by far, right?
Did you know that then?
Huh? Oh, well, when I met, they were all in the same class.
Oh, they were in your class?
They were in the same class.
Okay, and so you knew they were better than you?
I knew the caliber. Like, to me, caliber, like, you see how they fit the mold. You're like, oh, yeah.
Understood.
So, I had the opportunity. I'm very fortunate to have it. I was just happy that I was right, that I was going to, at least get a foot in the door to see what about. Yeah. And then when I didn't get the opportunity, I was like, man, how am I going to make this work? And I remember I met the Galpin guys a year prior because they came to visit the school.
Yeah.
And I, at the time I was doing like sketches on junk, like kids would leave their junk sketches in the classrooms and I'd pick them up, literally draw over them and say, pimp my sketch. So I was having fun with that. So, I remember I had that. I showed it to Bo, Mad Mike at the time, these drawings. And like, oh, this is really cool, blah, blah, blah. If you're ever in town, come visit us and everything. So, year later, internship didn't happen. And I remember these guys. I had the business card. I was like, oh, man, I wonder if they need a designer.
Yes.
This is me just knowing now that I'm resourceful. Like, this was all just my own thought process was like, oh, maybe these guys will have me work.
Yes.
So I called them up for a week straight trying to get hold of Bo at the time. And it's just like, hey, do you guys need a designer? Like, I'd like the internship for you guys. I'll work for free. Like, I'll just work for free and do whatever it takes to get in the door.
Yeah.
So Friday, I get a phone call from him going, hey, I heard, you're interested in working with us. Come in on Monday to show us your portfolio.
Yeah.
Showed them, tailored my portfolio, show all the custom stuff. And they're like, all right, when can you start? And that was January 23rd, 2009.
Okay.
So, before you know it, dude, I was like 23 at the time and then literally had projects dumped on me and started just designing from there. And 3 months went by fast. I had to go back to school and I found out I was a good fit for this team. And they were coming off the high of Pimp My Ride at the time. So
okay.
It was a little rock star still.
Sure. So the show had already been canceled?
Yeah, it was like 2 years done, but the reruns and everything were still going.
Sure. So still wildly popular.
Wildly popular. And yeah, so I got intoxicated with that. As a kid at 23, it was just like,
oh, I'm part of this world famous team.
Yeah, and the environment was fun, youthful. So yeah, it's like, I want to do this. So I worked it all out with the school, my deans, the student departments were like, they figured out how to tailor my curriculum to be like car customs.
Yes.
And get credit.
Oh, they did it that way.
Yeah, they figured out, and I could still graduate and meet the criteria.
Oh, wow.
So that was huge.
Is that a normal thing that they do? So that was very much just a very specific adaptation
ridiculous, neat. Yeah.
How did you get them to do that?
Literally, I had to show them a portfolio of me showing me designing actual cars that were being sold. So I came back
to prove that the process that they're teaching,
I was doing something real here. Like it wasn't just smoke. It was
understood.
Real deal. And then plus it didn't hurt that I didn't know at the time that Galpin had ties with Art Center, and they were kind of. And this is where I learned about politics too.
Understood. Okay.
So but for some reason it's like, wow, I got asked constantly by professors like, you sure you want to do custom design? And I was like, yeah. And I got known as the custom kid. Like I want to do.
So you're telling me that other students there don't necessarily aspire to do custom stuff?
They don't want. They want to do the conceptual stuff. They want to make up the cars and the future, and that's great. My heart was into. I love personalizing a car, like aftermarket. There really was no direct focus on aftermarket, like SEMA, and all that body kit design. It was like it's a lot of garage guys who are doing that. Like in design school. It was like lowbrow to do aftermarket design. I always thought, why was that?
Interesting.
Now you look a couple years down the road, I'm getting calls up from my department chair going, hey, we got this student who's in aftermarket. Can you kind of coach him through this process?
Okay, I have a question for you, right? So I'm interested.
Okay.
What is the difference between creating concept cars and custom cars? Because you're saying how they were talking about building cars for the future, which we all know as concept cars.
Yeah.
When OEM manufacturers in magazines are now online or do reveals of concept cars, those are their future releases or a version of what the future release will look like. So I understand what a concept car is, and I think everyone listening may as well also understand that. But concept car and custom car, how are they different? What is the principal difference? Because to me, I think they're almost the same thing. What's the difference?
In my definition, I can't speak universally for that, but I think the difference is conceptually, it's the idea of you're designing the future. You're trying to problem solve something. You're trying to solve a problem with design.
Under the guise of you need to get 700 miles to a gallon, or you need to have this low of a drag rating, right? That's what you mean.
Yeah, and then, but it's also too is like, you have manufacturing money. You have big budgets to do concept design.
Okay.
You're creating an infrastructure, something that can impact globally, how the world's going to operate, whether that be like a Tesla, for example. And the way Tesla now is playing in the aftermarket custom world is like, well, dude, just take the battery pack and put it into an existing
something
vehicle.
else. Yeah.
Like, dude, I love the fact that
they're doing it in Porsches.
Seeing BC Moto do it, Street Fighter do it with it. Just you take the concept of that, but it took concept design, took billions of dollars to create the technology. So us guys can go, you know what? Well, we can't really, the concept is still out there, but why don't we apply it to something that exists? That's the custom aspect, I think, how I define it. It's just
sure.
You're working with what you have, right? And it's just like, not everyone has, like Honda. I'm like, well, okay, well, I can't afford that. Well, what's the closest I get to? Like, for example, your Prelude.
Okay.
It's custom. It's not a concept. It was a concept in your head of what you want to do.
Yeah.
But like, in order to make what you want to do, you had to customize you had
everything.
In a sense, it is design too, because you had to problem solve on how to work and make sure everything fitted right.
Yeah.
You get the looks to do, and it's very meticulous. So it's almost ubiquitous of like they're all feed off of each other in a sense, No,
because I just found it fascinating, right? Because I understand what you're saying. I understand futuristic concept cars, right?
Right, but if you did it in the layman's terms, right, and someone who didn't really care to go into depth of defining those two aspects, concept design would be like, oh yeah, those are future cars, spaceship cars, and blah blah. And then you look at custom cars, you go, it's the guy building his car in the garage, the wannabe builders and everything.
Sure.
And I think custom cars are finally getting the due service and the respect that it finally needs. Like, for example, a Chip Foose.
Yeah.
Or you look at King Diggit, like the hot rod builders.
Yeah.
You name off of those, and then how it's influencing us import guys or Euro guys or lowrider. Dude, it's just. Custom is it's a lifestyle too, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Automotive custom lifestyle for sure.
But it comes down to the guys who are in a sense nonconformist.
Yeah.
The guys who don't like to just have what is everyone else is getting. It's an it's a sense of individuality.
Yeah.
Hence, is that an ego thing?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It could be in some cases. But, customization is just everyone defines it differently. What's your definition of custom?
You know what, man? I would say my definition of custom is taking something that already exists or creating something from scratch that simply does or looks the way you want it to look or function. You're making it your own, right? Whether that be mixing a color, right? Or a shape, right? Or taking the existing geometry on a car, but adding to it, right? Then there are obviously the people who are like, that's not good enough. I'm going to just make a tube chassis, right? I'm going to create geometry or something like that, right? And then now with metal, right? Okay, that valve cover, those wheels, those all look good, but they're just not what I want. So I'm going to make my own, right? People who are self-taught wheel design, CAD and CAM.
Amazing, yeah.
It's amazing, right? Because, as much as someone who went to design school and knows the digital side and 3D modeling and printing and design work, right? You like to draw it out. But at some point, for you to make that a reality vehicularly, you would take your drawing and have to then have someone else draw it digitally in 3 dimensions, and then take a 5-axis machine to cut it. So someone who can appreciate all of those processes or can do all of those is an invaluable resource.
And that's a Chip Foose, man.
Yeah, and so you have these builders. So you were talking about how it's only coming recently into the limelight. But when it comes to people like that, right, who have been hand drawing and creating cars from effectively scratch, in that world, they have been recognized for decades.
Yeah.
Right? It's more in what we would call the import world that it's not quite as recognized, at least on a scale that I believe that it could or should be. And that was one of the reasons why I took a personal car, and instead of getting up with a lot of partners or investors, I ended up believing that keeping it on a smaller scale would keep it more real, right? Because if you go and utilize every connection you may have or take a risk connecting with someone and collaborating with someone simply because they're willing to invest money, that's when you start to have either direct or indirect influences on what you do or how you do it. So by taking a personal car, right? And everyone calls me the Prelude guy, and the people who've been around long enough know that that's only one kind of car that
I've
had. Way beyond. I had my first car that was featured in print.
But dude, like that's the same. But that's the same way. I don't want to be labeled the Post-it guy.
The Post-it guy, right? You're an artist.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So fair enough. But I mean, I really believed that in the context of SEMA, right, and that's a whole different conversation because you are putting your beliefs or your build into a context of someone else's set of rules, right? And I think people miss that, right? Because SEMA isn't a validation.
Dude, it's gotten deeper now. The fact that the way you're describing it is like, can you think of like this hobby of, customizing and building stuff? Like, if you really dig and you start going back, it goes back to you and like, how do you reflect? Like, everything is like, well, how can I enhance this? But now you go, okay, well, that's the same mindset that I find myself doing. Is like, well, how can I enhance like my body in a sense? Like, I want to run faster. I want to, it's like, how do you? But it's like it's like cars are almost a conduit for like how it is truly reflecting who you are as a person.
Yeah,
right?
man, absolutely.
So SEMA is a sense. It's like, dude, you're putting
you are choosing to put it into a set of existing parameters, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I'm very much with you about seeing, because I opened my eyes. Maybe it's because I read magazines, okay? And I know a lot of other people that read magazines, but they stayed reading the same magazines. It's like someone who was very much into science fiction books but never reads anything other than science fiction. You're going to have a very specific way of thinking if you only read or educate yourself or expose yourself to one type of thing, right? So whether that be music, whether that be people, right, or food, if you only talk to and hang out with one type of person, you are going to only be one type of person, right? If you only eat one type of food, even if you absolutely love it, you have absolutely no idea what else is out there. None, right? And that's part of where being cultured comes from. And when I was growing up, we didn't have television, man, and that's translated to this day. I don't really watch television. I don't believe in it. I just don't do it, right? I mean, I have done it when I'm on these trips, right? I take so many trips a year hosting events. And
you have to be physically forced to like
Correct.
Sit there. Yeah.
But every once in a while, I'll be back in the hotel room while everyone, maybe goes out to eat or parties or something. And I'll just be like, I'm good. And I'll like turn on Law & Order SVU and I'll just like zone out to that, right? But as far as TV being this normal part of life, pop culture, reality TV, whether that's car related or not, it has never and will never be part of my day-to-day routine. Because there's not enough time in a day to live your own life, much less to watch other people give you a contrived realistic version of what theirs is. Because that shit's not real.
I understand, yeah.
So, in the context of something like SEMA, I started going, I've gone for maybe over about a decade and some change, and I know people that have gone to like 30 straight, okay? But I'm saying at that age, when I started going, first it was magazines, right? I was reading all the import magazines. But I also, right next to Import Tuner, Honda Tuning, Turbo, Sport Compact Car, Super Street, there was Road and Track and Car and Driver and there's all these other ones, right?
Mini trucking.
Mini trucking, lowrider, and hot rodding. And if you only picked up the three, Honda Tuning, Import Tuner, Super Street, and then Turbo, Sport Compact Car, depending on how far back you go, you would still only be in that one realm. And I totally was. But after a certain amount of time, especially with the growth of forums and just the speed of the internet.
How old were you at that time?
Well, when I first started standing in the magazine aisle of the grocery store.
Yeah, and then
14.
Okay, and
15.
Then when you got locked in that phase of just like, I want to just focus on the
imports.
Yeah.
From 14 on, like as soon as I picked it up, like Import Tuner had the models on the cover, so you're like, oh, look at this.
Of course, yeah.
I'm not supposed to be looking at her. She's not even wearing anything, right? And then Sport Compact Car. All cars, turbo, only cars, and more technical, right?
Yeah.
And then a Super Street had models and cars, Honda Tuning, right? So there's all these different things. But then right next to, I'm not even gonna front. I grabbed the lowrider and I was like, oh snap, this chick is not wearing. She's wearing string.
And lowrider Euro too, man.
oh yeah. So my point is, from about. Dude, the first time I picked one of them up, 13, 14, all the way up till I got my first car when I was, I believe I was 18, right?
What was your first car?
It was a Civic hatchback.
Which model?
An EG.
EG? Oh, nice. Right.
And that car was in Honda tuning in 05.
Wait, was it the or the Burgundy?
No, that was the Prelude in 08. My Civic was a blue color on blue and black Yokohama advance.
Okay, yeah.
So, anyways, my point is like, you asked me when was I only into imports? Right then. Like, during that time, I didn't look at anything. I mean, I thought lowriders looked crazy. I thought the sound of, like, the local dude dipping around in, like, a big block, I thought it was crazy, but I didn't aspire to own one. I wanted to.
I hate to say it, I aspired to. I still have a deep love. I would love to own a 6.4.
That
Impala.
was then. We're not talking about now. I'm talking about when I was 14, 15,
but is
16,
it weird?
17,
but
18.
I'm just saying, like, I grew up, like, I did the Super Street thing too,
yes.
But, like, I'd say if I had to stand next to 13-year-old Mike too, and we're both looking at the same thing, I'd be going for lowrider man.
Lowrider man. Dude, no, like I said, I grabbed lowrider to look at the crazy paint jobs on the cars, and also the models, right? But it was kind of all next to each other, and then if you went either left or right. Yeah, dude, those magazine aisles were long.
Yeah.
Right?
Fries, yeah, okay.
Yeah, man. Or Stater Brothers, right? And so, that's how I got into imports, but it didn't take very long for me to start appreciating. People think I'm only a Honda guy. Not true, right? But back then I was. But once I started writing for the magazines, when I was first given an opportunity, I did write for the first magazine that I did any journalistic work for was Honda Tuning. But then it also ended up being Super Street. But I actually did a lot of writing for Import Tuner when Charles was the editor, right? So my point is, you're given Subarus, Lexuses, drag cars, drift cars, anything, right?
Yeah.
And if I didn't know about it, I had to study so that I could write an efficient, intelligent article, right? Or piece together this person's story. So I already appreciated all these JDM cars and racing and all kind of stuff, but I learned about it a little bit more literally and technically so I could be a good journalist, right?
Yeah.
In the context of contributing to these articles and features in the magazines. And now, though, as I've gotten older, it's all of that stuff that made me realize that the perspective that the world has outside of our world is not a good one. They think that it's like the Fast and the Furious movie franchise, where a bunch of kids and we have underbody glows and not nitrous.
And that's the laziness. That's just, like, you just want to say, well, you don't even want to think about it. It's just the default answer of, like, Fast and Furious, okay, blah, blah, blah. But not choosing to go seek why, what it's about.
Sure,
right?
sure. But it's not taken seriously.
That's the hard...
Like, they don't take it seriously enough to think that there's anything to learn
Why do you think that?
Why do I think it's because of the only thing they're presented with, right? Just like anything, this is about to get real deep, right?
I want to
go. If the only news outlets that you watch tell you one angle of a story, that is how you are going to think. If the people that you hang around only think one way, or drink one thing, or behave a certain way, or do a drug, you are going to be like that as well. Mm-hmm. Okay? It is inevitable, right? You may be grounded in who you are, but there's a reason why you're only around a certain type of people. You're either drawn to that, or you behave like that, so you fit in, right? If you do not listen and read other perspectives and other worlds, and become cultured and educated, you are going to be inside of a tunnel for the rest of your life. And that is applicable to the style of cars, the art, the design of them, right? That's going to be the same thing for music, for politics, and religion.
Well, that's what I think I've come to learn. It's just like how... I'm sorry to stop you on that, but it's just like how porous the mind truly is. Like what you're filtering through. Like I had, like, as an artist, most artists I could say are hypersensitive. That's why we feel an emotion, and like it can be expressed visually, it can be expressed through sound. Through a performance of dance, like there's a hypersensitivity that I'm starting to understand too. Like, dude, if you have me listen to, Tupac or Nipsey Hussle, dude, I literally probably think I'm from Crenshaw or from the hood.
Okay.
Right?
And or you're gonna pull your snapback down a little bit lower,
dude. Like, I think that was happening to when I got dude, I really wanted to be a cholo. Back in high school, like when I said I reached for, like, I wanted the Cortezes, the White Beater, the Dickies.
No wonder you were looking at lowrider.
Yeah, I wanted the Impala SS.
Yeah,
because I realized it was like, holy shit! Like, I didn't realize it was becoming cognizant of how impressionable I was. Just due to that sensitivity of like feeding off of energy or feeding off of image.
Yes.
And it was like, dude, that's why my art, I take it like I'm very guarded now of like, oh man, how do I protect myself?
Yes.
I think it was BC Moto. me and him had a car ride in NorCal a long time ago, or 2 years ago. But he told me negative thinking for him is a sin.
Okay.
And I was like, man, that's pretty good. And it made me think, okay, well, feed yourself positivity.
Yeah.
Kind of start having a positive mindset.
But that's you taking what's going on in the
Yeah,
world around you and choosing to be around positivity.
And that's the hard part, is like, it goes back to the self-awareness and being cognizant of, like, stepping out of yourself and realizing, oh shit, like, everyone's immersed in that community, like, they're just immersed in the mindset. And I think it's very hard for me to, like, dude, it validates me going, oh shit, like, okay, I'm not the only one who's, like, because I would say I'm an ambivert, but like, I am introverted, and I love to spend time in my head.
Yes.
And like, it's like, I have to think, like, my perception of the world is like, yeah, everyone, I think it's a maturity thing. Everyone eventually will hit the stage of, like, waking up and be like, oh man, I was running this long on autopilot instead of actually interacting with my life. Yeah. So yeah, but like you were saying, and you're on this one channel.
So to touch back on that, like, it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter how established you are, it doesn't matter who you are. If you only are around or choose to be exposed to one type of thing or one type of thinking, you're never going to be a well-rounded person, right? Sad. And so when you ask why do people outside of our bubble of automotive customization, why do they not respect it, is because honestly, they don't need to. They don't need to, because if you look at the way that they're presented it, why would they even take it seriously? They do not take what we do seriously. Now, it's changing because of certain things, because of the evolution of times, platforms like SEMA, where everyone ends up being put under one roof, depending on how you look at that.
And when you say, who are these people that, who are you aiming at, or who are you mentioning, or the type of person that's not taking interest in, like, kind of looks at this community or hobby as kind of like it's
childish.
Around. It's childish. Yeah. Wait, who are these?
Everyone other than who's in it. So anyone other than who's in it. You ask a guy who, I've been hosting the IBOC meet for years now, right? 16 years. 2020 is 16 years, okay? Yeah. Right? And I've missed maybe one in 16 years. Now, let's just take one. This is just one answer, one example. There's so many more. Now, 10 years ago, when a guy was at the meet, rolled up in, whichever Honda he had, and he had a 6-year-old, right? Now, that 6-year-old, some of which I can remember because we can look at pictures, they're driving into the meet, okay? That is by definition generational. That is by definition a family affair. Yeah. I remember that 6-year-old, or a kid that was in a stroller now who's 6 or 8 or 10 walking next to their parents. I remember that. And by all definitions, that's powerful, that's real, it's generational, it's a family affair. Just like guys who watch their dads work on 50s and 60s muscle cars in the garage, right? Same thing, right? It's very real. But if you ask them about it, they'll talk your ear off on how they want to do an EG, an EK, a DC, an STI, a drift build, right? Weld their diff. Any direction, passion, right? Everyone's passionate about it. You ask someone who builds muscle cars, hot rods, what do you think about Hondas? Not that they're necessarily a mean person. They're going to be like, they're Econobox, they're fucking Japanese Econoboxes. Oh, yeah. And they're going to just, they're just going to move on.
The framing is basically, it's still the car community, but they're different part of car culture or different car perspective. Like,
from what I've experienced, man.
Or non-car lovers, or just people who just don't see the point of, like, they just look at transportation as an A to B thing, right?
No, I'm talking about automotive customizers who think that it is an absolute joke.
Oh, then okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And also broadly what you just said, but more specifically.
But how's it any different from someone, say, who's like a Star Wars addict? Yeah. Like, I don't understand them, but like I want to try to understand them. But
no. You're looking at it from an entirely different angle. I'm not talking about the way it should be. I'm talking about the way it is.
Okay.
You're thinking idealistically, and I'm thinking realistically.
Okay. Yeah, because you're out there, so I can't.
So exactly. Okay. So at some point when I started putting myself out there, or actually back then it was more just not putting myself out there, but taking what was out there in, stepping out of this one narrow tunnel of magazines and reading the magazine 5 magazines over, or instead of being on this one forum heading on over to the Euro Forum or the whatever, right? And it starts to open your mind, right? Just like with belief systems, religiously, politically, or philosophically. If you're in one, that one might seem like everything, and then you end up opening another book, and you're like, whoa, whoa.
Well, that's what it is. The car community is just it's a conduit for those set of beliefs or how you basically view the world.
Yes, so the way you're referencing it is more like, but I want to understand other people. That's different.
Okay.
Yeah, you're holding, because that's how you think.
Yeah.
And what I found is, even if people aren't malicious, or even if they're not toxic or closed-minded, if they don't necessarily believe that there's anything worth understanding, why would they? Right? Many people, even to this day, don't believe there's anything worth acknowledging in this, subculture of automotive customization. Import, and then you can go to however you break that down: drag race, time attack, show, go, rear wheel drive, front wheel drive, all motor, forced induction. However you want to categorize it, subcategorize it. There are people who have rear wheel drive who make front or front wheel drive all the time. Track guys will tell you all the time. Elitists, they're going to tell you there's no reason for a front wheel drive car to be on the track, right? And then all-wheel drive guys are going to be like, well, we make more power than all you guys and we're quicker, right? Which is proven on the track. That's not always true. But the point is, you're going to find people who say rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, it shouldn't matter, mid-engine, front engine, blah, 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 right? It's no different when you go one more layer out, one more tier out, one more, and just keep going to the point where you get outside of imports, and people who don't build imports are like, why the fuck would you build an import, right? Yeah. They may not understand it, but they don't even think that they should have to. But as drag racing in the years past started growing, you have people like Carroll Shelby who are like, man, you got these guys doing single digits, right, in these 4-cylinders, and that's amazing. Dude, it's Carroll Shelby, right? And he said that himself, right? And so you have the people who weren't narrow-minded. He hasn't designed anything import, but he acknowledged it. He had his ear open enough to see that. And
okay, I can kind of see myself in the closed-minded aspect, because I'm trying to.
You mean present or before?
Present. No, actually, it was
before.
Before, but I can now, because it is like you said. I do, like, you brought something to my attention where it's like, holy shit, maybe I do look a little too optimistically, like, oh, everyone can just be fluid and like malleable.
You know
right?
what? Because everyone can. Your perspective is actually correct, but that doesn't mean that everyone does.
But that's the thing. I have never encountered. Granted, I probably haven't really encountered people where they've been so hard-headed in their beliefs, like, because I think I just haven't contended against it. I just don't know what that's like.
Well, that's good for you, man, but I sure as hell have.
You have that life experience, which is like, man, maybe I should go see what this is about. I know my sister, my brother-in-law have to deal with it.
Yes.
Hospitals, just the foolishness that you see, right? I'm sure you see it too.
Yes.
And there's a hard-headed, stubborn personality, right? And
that is actually what's scary is that's what's reigning supreme now.
That's and granted, I'm stubborn in my own way, but it's just like it's stubborn because I need to get to our goal. Dude, if your
stubbornness is I want to believe that people are good and I'm going to believe in people, I say run with that stubbornness.
But there's a paradox too that since I'm aware that seeing how things are being guided or led right now, that I am pessimistic. That's why I say I'm cautiously optimistic.
See, but that, my friend, right there is, I think, where the balancing act, which I believe is a good one. It's healthy. It's healthy to balance these things out.
Light and dark. You have to see light and dark. Yeah.
Right. To have contrast. Contrast by definition needs light and dark.
But to see someone who's just leaning into the darkness and that they can't get out and they don't know how to see.
And here's the ironic part is depending on how you want to flip that, they don't believe they're in the darkness. They think we are.
Right.
If you talk about
they're
someone
right
who builds,
in their perspective, and
if they believe they're right. So if you talk about a person who's building a rear-wheel drive track car, if you try to convince them that I think the better starting platform is a front-wheel drive one, they're going to be like, but it isn't though, right? So everyone believes that they've got it right. And this is the danger about life and politics and religion, specifically those two, because those are the ones that become the most abrasive, contentious subjects, is that the dangerous part when you believe that you are right is that almost always that will inadvertently mean that the other person has to be wrong. And when you believe you're right, even if you are passionate and you are innocently rooted in the belief that you've got it right, you therefore then can treat people like they've got it wrong. okay? And that's the dangerous part. Art, there's no right or wrong, right? And that's part of the growing process, is who you were and who I was yesterday, the day before, 10 years ago. We thought we knew it. We were teenagers, man. You think you got it, right? And you realize later, when you're 15, you think you know it. When you hit 25, you're like, I didn't know a fucking thing when I was 15. You get to 35 and you're like, man, my 25-year-old self needed to learn more, right? Mm-hmm. What about 45? What about 55, right?
And that just comes with its age and experience, man. And I think it's, I think also, too, is reading, these philosophers, and, at the end of the day, it's like, can't help but think, like, you do have to stand for something, right?
You have to, man.
And granted, everyone's standing right, and they're viewing and they're right. I think it's the important aspect is when you have to balance logic and emotion.
Yeah.
But if you can put your ego aside and have the humility to go and ask you first, I'm like, Mike, well, why do you have that viewpoint?
Sure.
And
then Doug, tell me why you have yours.
Not enough people are doing that.
No, they don't talk to each other.
I can agree on the fact that they're just so adamant. They're automatically closed shut.
Husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, family members. Right. Communication sounds so cliche, but people need to be able to have uncomfortable conversations.
Well, and that's the sad part that I'm realizing
to each other.
That you're not even seeing right now. I think sitting down and everyone has this time to sit around and just kind of see what's happening. You really, now it's dawning on them like, wow, I'm really seeing how biased this channel is or this channel is. Okay, now I need to really go seek. And making sure you look at it from an own unbiased point of view yourself.
Yes.
And understand, like, holy shit, everyone wants just you to force their narrative on you. And like,
dude, but before you even get to that, Doug, you have people who stayed in the tunnel of cars all day long. Everything's cars. Yeah. Or sneakers. Or fashion. Or whatever they were just totally zoned in on. And right now the world forced them to realize that there is an entire world around them. People don't know about macroeconomics. They don't understand the globe. They don't understand integrated economies. That's all like, oh man, I don't need to know that shit. Yeah, man, to some degree, you have to know what's going on because our economy affects the world economy and the world economy affects our economy.
It all compounds,
And so all of a sudden, you're now like Germany, Sweden, Italy, Iran, Japan, Hokkaido. These different parts of these different countries are getting just ripped apart. And I never once even paid attention to any of these countries because I don't need to. But you know what? Now you have to, because you have our country trying to model after another country that didn't get as ripped up, or the ones that did. Then we're trying to not do what they did, and all of a sudden you have this world population kind of like, oh yeah, we have to be aware of the others, because that's like life in general, man, or a relationship. Just two people who live together in a relationship, or the world relationship. If you just stay in your tunnel, you will not understand that you are missing out on the world around you, and you are inadvertently closed off and subsequently calloused to the world around you. Mm-hmm. And you have to pay attention. So you have this entire generation of people that all they really thought about was, what is the next mod that I can put on my car and post, or girls are like, what's the next selfie I could take? And all of a sudden it's just like, wait a minute, people are dying all over the place, and I need to actually be somewhat aware of that.
Well, and that's the hard part, and then that's the thing, you're hit with those three options. You can either get better, you stay the same, or you get worse. Right? So in your perspective, it's like, yeah, there's some people, I would love to think that, a lot of people are just sitting there and not being bored and like learning, maybe it's time to, reassess the situation. There's a lot of people that are probably getting stressed out and doing escapism right now.
Oh, for sure.
Drinking's gone through the roof. Like
so is dancing on TikTok. That's escapism too.
But the fact is like, yeah, it is a very, like, I forgot who mentioned, but it is a very hard thing, ridiculously hard to sit there with yourself in thought and start doing self-realization.
Yes.
That is and yes, it is. And the hard part is, what questions do you even start asking yourself?
Yes.
It's very specific questions.
Yes.
And like, it can be overwhelming. Like I remember when I first started the process.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is like fucking stupid woke culture, like the term.
Sure. Hashtag
like,
stay woke.
Yeah, stay woke and all that.
Woke
bullshit.
nation.
Yeah. I just think it's a time in a life. Like I think in life, and my sister and I had this conversation. It's like, yeah, everyone hits milestones.
Yeah.
I'm happen to be in my 30s, and 30s happen to be like a time where you're redefining yourself again.
Oh yeah.
Mortality's starting to creep in on you. Like, yeah, and it's phases. And I realized, okay, maybe I'm in this phase of my life. Everyone's going through it, but different timings, right?
Yeah.
And and it's like, okay, they're right for everyone else to have those time. You can't just force it on someone. It's nice to bring the realization to them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and I think with that being said, it's like when having to teach myself, or luckily using the internet as a tool, to help you learn how to define what you want for your life or how to improve your life, but how to sit comfortably with yourself.
Yes.
And I do understand how hard that is for someone.
Absolutely.
And it's just, and I think it is it's not a lighthearted subject at all, man. It's
not at all, man.
And I think it's the hard part is if you look at someone who always wants the easy way,
you
can guarantee that they're not even gonna bother with this kind of shit.
Absolutely,
until it takes something crazy or some
even worse than
it took a life-altering event for me to kind of I was kind of aware of it, but this one just stamped it into me going,
no, but dude, the thing that I appreciate about your story and seeing your evolution is you taking this, I mean, you didn't want it, but this loss of a loved one, and you did something with it. It's not like immediately you had some type of intelligent self-awareness, but at first it was sadness, and there's the anger and all the denial and grief, right? All the normal ways of someone dealing with a trauma, and then you ended up evolving into this. Let me do something with this. Let me think about this. Let me do something with this PTSD from
But sadly, I know people who've gone through a situation like I did.
Yeah.
And I think it had to do with my dad's mental fortitude of things and how he brought himself up, and he instilled that in me. And I can think of other friends who've gone through the same situation, and dude, they've fallen apart, man.
Yes.
It's you can either get better or you break.
Yes.
And I want to get better, and it's painful, but I'm just glad going back to a very young start, art. At the same, art is just not an idea of coloring. It's actually my way of life.
Yes.
It's weird and cliche that sounds
stupid. Man, absolutely not.
The fundamentals of art, and it has played a role in how I even navigate life. Art is time, patience, focus, perseverance.
Oh, dude, you just
constant skill set. It's constant improvement, but it reflects. It's so congruent with how I want to run my life too. So I'm trying to take. That's where art means so much to me. It's just yes, people see on an Instagram or my post. It's oh, that's so fun and cute, and draw, dude. I wish I could just describe to you what I'm going through. Even I go, oh, it's a little, but to me they're deep.
You hit though. I mean, you use synonyms, but you hit some of the foundations of the Think Bigger project. You hit them right now. You were just going one after another, and I just worded it as passion, drive, and focus.
Yeah.
You have everyone has the passion, but the drive is the work ethic. The perseverance factor, right? And then the focus is being able to envision and keep your eye on the prize of whatever you decide is what you want to achieve and succeed at. And you have to have those three together, because one without the other, it's just not going to be enough. True. Right? So when you put them all together, that's the key. And I think a lot of people are being fed this very Disney version of reality where it's just passion. It's just the love. If you love it, you'll succeed. And that's fucking bullshit. That is a very dangerous way of living, because you are going to have some very traumatic experiences.
A lot of disappointed people.
A lot of very disappointed people. Yeah. But dude, you talked about all these things that have led up to what you would consider being successful, and obviously there's more steps and more tiers and more success. But you can say that your page, which has 1/2, 1/5, 1/10 of the followers as someone else, you are not upset by that. You are happy with your organic growth, and you have a certain client base. People love what you do, and I mean, we've talked. We're blessed to have many mutual acquaintances and friends, and I remember you're at the McGuire's booth at SEMA. Mm-hmm. I came over to see you, right?
Yeah,
I did a vlog with you, but you were on the world's biggest Post-it note, drawing every day at SEMA live, so people could come see you. So I know you're not just the Post-it guy. You went from the small Post-its to the world's largest Post-it. But for people who can see your work, they can go to the Notable Rides website. Right, and I'll put that up there for all of you guys who don't know. I'll put up all the information for Doug. You guys can check out his work, follow him, communicate with him. what you've heard here is just scratching the surface on Doug.
Dude, Mike, dude, I want to interview you, honestly, man. I know there's so much, like, this is so scratching the surface, man. I don't even think, this could buff right out, like.
Yeah, man. You guys, that's the thing that's amazing. Doug, I think we got along from the get-go because we have the ability to feel out someone's energy, right? And you have the ability to kind of feel, at least from your experience with them, in this case me, that you got good energy. And if you didn't, you wouldn't be.
I got you fooled.
You wouldn't be. You wouldn't even do this, and vice versa. Honestly, vice versa. If you had 4 million Instagram followers, but then when I met you, I thought you were a douchebag, I wouldn't have you on the podcast.
But it goes back to the like attracts like, man. And
man.
I think it's testament. Yeah, when you did come to the SEMA booth, it was great seeing you again, and then. But it's also, too, it's like watching you, it's like you're being productive still. Like, it's like you're working on getting your message out. And, like, I can see you slowly growing. And, like, you're getting the proper core audience. And it's like, I'm glad you're playing that position in the community. Like, that's your role. And it's like, dude, you are a staple, in a sense.
Thank you.
Like, I understand my root of in the car culture is like, I'm the artistic expression of car culture.
Yes.
I think you and I, and then I think at the root of it is like, and outside of cars, but now it's like you get into the human aspect.
Yes.
And really
it's the way people think.
Yeah, the cars are just a way of connection.
Yes. And
then once you get the connection, then you open up dialogue.
Yes.
And then you really see who everyone's about.
Because in the end, it's about the human experience.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're all part of that community, right? And the whole point of the community conversations segment.
And I appreciate
of the podcast.
And then I think it's you and your mission is you in a sense you're on a mission to bring awareness, realization. I think you want to have, you're optimistic and include everyone.
Yeah,
you want to bring
growth.
in the hot rod.
Yes.
Like, have you thought about sitting down with a hot rod guy and just being able to
those episodes are on the way. Trust me.
Okay, all right.
Some of them are in the queue.
I'm gonna be right on top there.
Yeah,
But and I think it's the cars. It's dude, like that's a surface thing. It really is.
Yes.
I think that's why the notable aspect is like, the cars, guarantee, I still have a way, like, I'll just reveal the secret anyways, but, like, I want to do the prelude, but I'm trying to figure out how to put it in a series that makes sense to me. Like, a lot of the things I do, there's a story behind it. Like, I just, as I'm getting older, like, dude, I'm so tired. I'm appreciative, but at the same time, it's a little hard to keep up with DMs. It's like, hey, dude, can you do this car?
Sure,
do this?
sure.
Like, I've had to be very guarded now, and like where I want to, the importance of time, energy, and focus is like, where do I really want to direct that?
Yes.
And selfishly, like, I just want to do what I want to do.
Yes.
It's just that's what it is, and like I include the people that I've actually had contact with, and like knowing you more. And it's like, dude, that car is, that's a reflection of Mike. That, like, I'm not, like, I don't draw people's portraits.
Sure.
I can't draw people for shit. But I can draw the hell out of your car.
Yeah.
And whatever that car means, like, if I meet you, I'm like, oh, yeah. And then how do I characterize Mike and his car and, like, the beauty of it? And that's what I'm really doing.
Yeah.
It's a portrait. Like, I'm looking at everyone's portraits, as silly as that sounds, but that's the only way I can make a connection with a friend or someone.
Sure, sure.
So
look, man, whenever you so choose to allot your time to do it, I'll be honored.
Oh, it's gonna happen, man.
I can't wait, man. You really graced the podcast. I mean, I pick people who don't just. It's not just about exposure. It's never been about that, right? Mm-hmm. Good people who have something to share.
No, like, no joke. I was very, like, you're the very. Dude, out of all the community,
yes,
like, you were the first. I'd probably say first, dude. Not even like my best friends will make it to the house, like, to sit down, and like, you're one of the very first people to like sit in my office, which is a personal space and private space to me, right?
I see.
But it's the energy and the excitement that I know that I'm gonna get having conversation with you.
I see.
I'm honored, not blowing
Thank
smoke
you.
up your ass.
No, I'm honored.
This is like
man.
Real talk. Ignore the microphone. It's just. It's me going, oh man, I'm gonna learn something from this guy today, and like I'm very excited that someone who sees on the same frequency.
Yeah.
And like, dude, like my perceptions when I go in the car community, It's all surface, man. Like, it really, you can't, and like, even what we had right now is not even, dude, it can't even, it's not enough. Like,
right.
I know we can go on for several more hours.
For sure.
And I can't stop talking about my brother-in-law, but he's the same way, and him and I have had conversations for like literally 6 hours.
Sure.
Just, it's that kind of seeking, like, you're a seeker to me, man. Like, it's hard finding people who legitimately are after a mission to go seek.
Yes, knowledge and growth.
And like, and the guys who you do meet, they're so busy, like, moving. That's the thing, is movement and momentum and keep going. For me, I'm forced to sit down, so I can't really go anywhere. So
sure, but here's the thing, though. So we kind of starts to become a little bit more philosophical. But I was reading a quote just recently where it says, "Don't confuse movement with action."
Yeah,
because there's a ton of people.
Oh, they're moving around.
They're moving around, but they're not doing anything.
It's burst busy being burst productive.
Right. There's a lot of people who are like, you can talk a lot, but are you saying anything?
Dude, I'm big on actions, man.
Okay, and so I appreciate everything that you just said. I find it very, very complimentary. It's an honor to hear those kinds of descriptions from me as a person, and I appreciate that that's how you feel. You can't fake that. Like, if you didn't sense that from me, you wouldn't say those things, and it's a very...
You're congruent, man.
I appreciate you, man. And honestly, it's that same kind of reasoning, just flip it around, that made me, set this up with you, figure it out, and logistically, and make it happen. And it's important, because good people need to be able to share that. There's other people right now who are listening, and they need to understand that in right now where we are in the world, it's a lot of negativity, right?
It's easy, but that's what people love feeding off.
That's what love, and so
crab in a bucket.
We are here. The Think Bigger project is to foster growth, promote growth, intelligence, and as a person, it betters themselves as an individual. They can then in turn help the community. If you can't help yourself, you can't help others, right? And so the whole Think Bigger project, as a brand, as a way of thinking, as a movement, and then the podcast is there to help people. And I always say, it's not about telling people what to think, it's teaching people how to think. And from there, you can do with that what you so choose, right? And you've been an amazing guest. I feel like we could spend, like you said, hours longer, and we will. We will. There will definitely do a follow-up. The growth of Notable Rides, and you as an artist and as a person, aside from business.
Maybe we'll see each other at SEMA. I don't know.
Not maybe, man. I've been going for a pretty solid amount of time.
Do you think it will happen? Do you think it's... Dude, the way things are getting canceled, man, and the way, that I get...
That is a great question. You know what?
Large gatherings, cramped together, man.
And international guests. There's a ton of international. As of right now, they said they're doing it. As of right now, there's no indication that they're not doing it. To be honest with you,
would you go?
I don't know the answer to that. Let me say that again. My first answer is yes.
Okay. Yeah.
My second answer was wait, given the certain set of circumstances now. The second answer, and this is all within a millisecond, is no. And then I think about it and I'm like, I don't know. Because I'll probably make that decision in, I don't know, October.
Of course, you gotta see how it plays out.
Right? Sure. I think they're gonna have to announce if they're gonna end up deciding not to in probably September, Because here's the thing, right? What if Nevada says no? Then they can't do it, right? If Vegas hasn't reopened, then it doesn't matter what SEMA wants to do, I don't believe. I mean, SEMA is a very well-established, convention and trade show. They have that space set for probably 100 years in advance. But in answer to your question, would I go? I need to see how the world, and then obviously subsequently, more our country, and then that state. But that trade show is so international that it's a little bit more complex than just Las Vegas, Nevada, the United States. There's a ton of people that come over from China, a ton. There's a ton of people that come over from Japan and just European countries. Just the whole point is international travelers, all in one place, in one room, albeit a huge room.
Can't be helped, but it's apprehension for sure.
For sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think maybe if anything, they'll mandate that everyone has to wear a mask. I could see that happening. Unless this curve just continues a nice steady drop. We have 5 months, June, July, August, September, October, right? And if it just drops off, then maybe everything, when we get to the SEMA, we're going to walk in and it's going to feel very normal. As of right now, it seems difficult.
Like with you being in the field, like you're gauging of it.
Yeah.
In a sense, Can you... do you feel hopeful though? You think there could be a drastic change in 5 months like that?
Do I think there can be?
Yeah,
yes, I think there can be.
Okay.
As states start to reopen, right? And people are starting to go out and about. The biggest safety is not a mask. That's at least non N95, N99, or N100, right? Which a lot of people don't even know there's anything other than an N95, right? There very much is, right? But my point is, it's not a mask. It's distancing. And I don't mean stay home distancing. I mean, you can be out, but just stay 6 feet apart or more if you can. And that right there is honestly all people really need to do. Now, of course, if you have the people with no manners that cough into the air and sneeze into the air without even trying to use their shirt or their elbow, okay. But right now I think everyone's on this tip like, no, just stay home. Nah, man, you don't have to stay home, but you do need to distance. Now, the argument immediately becomes, well, if you go out, you can't control if other people distance. And you're absolutely right. So, should it? Can it get better? Sure. Will it? I don't know the answer to that, man. We have to just wait and see. It's just a matter of people. It's a matter of people and how they so choose to practice their hygiene, and their spacing. Give people personal space and then some. When you're in line to buy your groceries, just don't be inside of the pants of the person in front of you. Just back up, Just give people space, and wash your hands before you pick your nose and suck your fingers and scratch your eyeball, and you will literally be fine, okay? But we'll see what happens, But in the midst of everything, man, having you as a guest, some of the things that you said to me on a personal level.
And just to let you know, we are socially apart, so yeah.
Yeah, guys, we it's true. In the context of what's going on, we are spaced apart, okay? And it's not a joke, but it's also something like, when do you decide that you need to continue moving forward in life, right? And that's a whole different kind of debate. But right now there's so many people at home, and there's Doug, the amount of messages I get, the connection. Yeah. That's why I don't care about numbers. Mm-hmm. I care about interaction and connection, and the type of connection that the Think Bigger project and the podcast has helped to create, in addition to the people that were already very kind and supportive who have followed either my builds and or me as a person, as a figurehead in the community. It is deeply humbling. I keep myself very grounded. I do not want to become, on one end of that extreme is becoming narcissistic and conceited, and the other end, is even is just as unhealthy, right? Yeah. And you have to have a balance, right?
Everything in moderation, and figure out how to balance.
But if you go the other end, you end up being jaded, right, and cynical, right? Yeah. You either love it,
nihilistic.
Or you either love people because they give you attention, or you hate them because you think they're using you, and it's very unhealthy. You have to find the middle, and so I keep myself grounded. I keep myself humble. And, the things that I've experienced as an individual, loss and pain and trauma, I use that to keep myself grounded and grateful.
Well, I think that goes back to, how, and the reason why that grateful and keep the humility and stay down to earth is, I think the overall lesson in all of it, it sounds morbid, but I think it's a driver for me at least. In Stoicism, it's memento mori.
Okay.
Basically, just understand life is short. It's so cliche, but you're gonna be dead. Hopefully, everyone in a long time. But it's
did you just hit people with Latin right now? I'm pretty sure that's Latin.
Probably.
It's pretty. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. But you guys got to look that up. You got to put that in the caption, and you guys can look it up.
Yeah, and then I think it's just it really does shape your. You think. Once a day at least, it's healthy to at least, I think it's a little healthy. If you think, you think about your mortality, what do you want to do with your day? Like, how intentional, what kind of day do you want to have for yourself? What do you want to experience? Like, that's me every day. Like, what do I want to experience? If this is, God forbid, like, this is the last conversation for today, I hope. Yeah, it's just like, dude, I'm glad I got to experience this, or, like last time, my last moments here with you. And it's just, or in the house, just whatever it may be, but it's like walking around with that kind of awareness and not get caught up in the trivial shit.
Yes.
Like, it's just, and you just, that's the gratitude part, health, everything, so, Yeah. Anyways, I thought that's big to me. That one's a trigger for me. It's just
it is, man. It's
like
very
the people
important.
who are saying they're bored at home. Like, come on.
I know.
Dude, get better than that. Like, you're better than that.
You're better than that. There's so much to do, so much to learn, so much to think about.
It's a reflection. If you're bored, it's just a reflection. You're just probably not doing enough with your life, or you haven't spent the time with yourself to figure out what you're about. Yes. You know, and use that time at least. You know.
You guys don't take that as a jab. Take that as a point to push you forward. You know, if you're bored, it's because you don't know what to think about. Or there's too many things to think about, but you're only thinking about them on the surface. Yeah. You're not going deep.
Yeah, thanks for playing. Yeah. I didn't realize that sounded a little crass. But yes, you know, just kind of, you know, feel... No pun intended. Feel yourself out, you know? Yeah. Not in a gnarly way, but, you know, just kind of...
Or in a gnarly way, man. Yeah. It's quarantine time.
Get in touch with yourself, you know, literally or figuratively.
Yeah.
You know, but realistically, you know, I think it's the pause that this world needs, and you know, it is coming at a great cost. So for those who have passed away, you know, don't do shit in vain. You know, don't waste this time. This is unprecedented. Like, you never will have probably another time where the world's gonna be put on pause like this. Yeah. You know, hopefully not, but you know,
sure.
It's a very unique time to find an opportunity, and don't mean that in a conniving, weird way. Just it's opportunities that are there. You know, you have to search out for them. Yes. So, yeah. Anyways, that was like a little rant I wanted to get out, but that
good,
you know,
man. Let it out.
But gratitude, it's just like, you know, that's why I try staying away from the social media aspect. Is you know, and I don't have the energy to try to sit down and explain, you know, why, you know, someone takes the time and energy to go, dude, I'm so bored. It's like, really? Like,
I know.
You know, and I can't come off as judgmental because that's just what it is. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I hope you find it clicks on you, you know? So, but yeah, anyways.
No, but Doug, listen. We will definitely do a follow-up. I mean, in the growth over time. Yeah, for you as a person, for me as a person, for the podcast, as a podcast, for Notable Rides as a company, you know, there's nothing but growth. And as we do that, I know there'll be many more conversations to have. It's an amazing opportunity to be able for us to get together and put this community conversations episode together, put it out on the Think Bigger podcast so people can listen and learn more about you as a person, about Notable Rides, but more importantly about what came before and led up to it. It's not just about, he did an artist, dude, now I can get someone to draw my car. It's so much deeper than that.
I would hope so.
It is, you know. And the people who listen understand that. And if they don't, the whole point of this is to help to guide people to understand that it's much deeper than just objects. It's about life. It's about us as a community, as people, and the human experience, and being a part of a culture and a community that we all have a responsibility to keep going and not just survive but thrive. Yeah, right? That's what it's all about. So, you guys, I will put out Doug's information and Notable Rides in the captions. I always encourage you guys to please keep in touch. You know, follow Notable Rides, follow Doug. You can see what he's doing, communicate with him. That's what it's all about. This is not just to put out for you to listen to and digest and turn around in your mind. It's also to continue the conversation. So continue the conversation with us in the comment section, whether on YouTube or on Instagram. You know, keep in touch with myself and Doug. If you have questions, comments, anything, it's important to share that. Don't just keep it in. And we'll keep in touch with you guys. So, Doug, once again, my friend, I appreciate you very much for being on.
And that saying, man, that was a game changer for me. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
I think there's a good amount of people out there, too, I'd hope, you know, that see it the same. Dude, when you just flipped it, just that I appreciate you, and it becomes so much more personal. And, like, in a sense, like, there's a part of me that almost feels like it's on the almost same level as, like, I love you, but it's like, but when you say I appreciate you, it just hits so much more differently.
It does. Okay, so for those of you, the new listeners, and there's a the new listeners, you guys may not really understand what quite he's referring to. And it's something that I mention in live streams. It's something that I mention in my Instagram stories and posts here and there, and also in the podcast. But I actually have a specific podcast episode where I say that thank you isn't good enough.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Okay, so what he's referring to is that I have been presenting this idea for people to, instead of saying thank you to someone, you tell them that I appreciate you. And it's very much more direct, it's personal, it's very real, it's profound. Saying thank you is well-mannered. Saying thank you is polite. And we all should be able to say that to someone. But when you say thank you to someone, it's one thing. When you look at them and say, I appreciate you, it's far more deep. And you can have a very real effect. I've had people message me and say, dude, you don't understand. I've said that to somebody and they've stopped dead in their tracks and they're like, I don't even know the last time a human being has said that to me.
I can testify for one of those experiences too. Like,
really?
I think when I forgot what they did for me, but it was a big help. And all I remember is they're kind of walking away and they're, they thought I was going to just say, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
The basic line,
Sure.
It was like, hey, dude, I appreciate you.
Yes.
Like, you don't know what it's done. I really do appreciate you. And literally just to see, he was kind of like a stoic kind of looking guy. Like,
yes.
Didn't really smile much. But, dude, to see him, like, kind of like, lift a little smile.
Interesting.
It touched a little differently.
It does. When was the first time you heard me say that or preach that?
Shoot,
do you remember?
Man. It was beginning of, I want to say it was beginning of last year. Yeah, man.
Where? Where did you hear it? Or
No, it was No, it was literally, it was the podcast, but I think it was also too, there was a comment, there was some comment that you put, I'll have to look for the comment, but it hit differently. I can't recall, but like it just stuck with me, but I knew it came directly from you.
About saying I appreciate you.
Yeah.
You know, guys, honestly, that's a very, very big, like, I guess it shouldn't be a shock, but it is. That was a very, very kind, surprisingly beautiful shock for you to do that, man.
But it's just the influence of words too, and like how you frame it.
The power of words, man.
Yeah, like for you, I'm glad you're there to kind of like, for example, like if you're bored, you're not doing, and then you're there to, it's like, someone's gonna interpret that.
Sure.
With some hostility,
yes.
And you're there to kind of help me word it better.
I see.
Package it.
I see. Yeah.
So yes, it's like, how do you package? So when you package, I appreciate you. There's so much loaded in that. Those 3 words, and you're just like.
Yeah, you know what,
okay.
Guys. I think that for those of you that are just now listening for the first time and hearing what Doug's talking about, I think the best way to get an understanding, a very real, powerful understanding of that, is to listen to the episode of the Think Bigger podcast. It's called "Thank You Isn't Good Enough," and it's a full episode about what Doug's talking about.
And that's timeless, man. That's something that can go on for.
I am deeply honored that I did not know that resonated with you.
No,
I did not know.
I'm telling you, but it's I think. Anyway,
I'm honored, man.
Cool.
I'm genuinely honored, you guys. I cannot stress enough. Keep in contact. Don't let this go in one ear. If you're wrenching in the garage, if you're commuting, if you're quarantining at home, and you're just at the house listening, dude, stop right now. Pause. You don't even have to go to the end. Just pause it. Come back and finish it later, but communicate with Doug. Communicate with me. Share anything you want. If you want it to be private, you can do it via DM. If you don't mind it being out there and other people can read it and I can respond publicly, comment in the Instagram post that I'm going to do for Doug's specific episode. Comment on Doug page as well. Keep in contact with him. You guys have heard it. Good guy, fantastic artist. You can see his work if you aren't aware of it on the website and on the Instagram. And Doug, we're going to do another part 2 soon. But right now,
I would love to, do it like a long term, because I see you doing this for a while. It'd be just great to even do like a year from now, like
sure,
see how the language has changed, see how your growth has happened.
I'm 100% down.
Yeah, man.
I'm 100% down. So, once again, you guys, I appreciate every single one of you. Community conversations where we get together and have a conversation with a member of the community to learn not just about them, but to learn from them. Yeah. And I think those of you that have listened, it is impossible for you to not have learned from, not just about Doug, but from Doug. Take what you've heard, do what you can and what you want with it, turn it around for yourself in your own mind, in your own life. And that's what the Think Bigger Project and the Think Bigger podcast is all about. So I appreciate you, Doug, for being on.
appreciate you too, Mike.
And everyone for listening. Once again, please keep in contact, interact, and share your thoughts and emotions and feelings for what you hear in each of these episodes, okay? So, appreciate you guys. And Doug, 1 year from now.
1 year.
All right?
Signed.
All right, we'll make it happen. All right? Thank you guys, and I'll see you on another episode of the Think Bigger podcast.